The Bills' schedule's officially been out for an hour, and now we react to it. Thank you for joining us here on WGRZ+. I'm Sports Director John Scott, joined by Jonathan Acosta and our NFL insider, Vic Carucci. We're going to use the next 30-plus minutes to go through the entire Bills slate, including week by week. But let's start more broadly. Here's a look at the Bills' schedule in its entirety. And Vic, we'll start with you. Your initial overall takeaways.
Yeah, kind of as expected with the many primetime games, 5. Interesting that it's the second year in a row that the NFL decided to bunch these primetime games, 4 of the 5, in the first 6 weeks of the season. So they like the Bills in primetime early on for some reason. The other things that I think about quickly, no international game. There's a lot of speculation that maybe they'd be involved there. And no holiday game, especially Christmas night, which was something of a discussion, a buzz that I heard not only in Western New York, but also around the NFL. So for people who like to have Christmas and spend it at home and watch other teams play and then enjoy the Bills on other days, that's fine. And then, of course, 2 of these primetime games right here on Channel 2.
Look at you being a company man, Vic, here. I wholeheartedly agree with you for the holiday omission here. Thank goodness. That's my number one thing. Jonathan, what's yours?
Well, let's start off with the first game. Bills, Ravens, there was all the hype, all the build-up to the playoff game last year between Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, the 2 leading candidates for MVP. The NFL obviously liked the ratings they got for that one because they said, let's start off the season in that same note. And then the other aspect of this, for the final year at Highmark Stadium, this is an incredible home schedule for the Bills. You have 3 home games in prime time in the first 5 weeks of the season, Baltimore, Miami, and New England. And then you have 3 other big-time games in that national 425 slot. Kansas City coming to town, obviously one of the biggest games every season that Patrick Mahomes plays Josh Allen. You have Joe Burrow coming back here for the first time in a few years. And you also have the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles coming to Orchard Park at the end of the season. So for a final year at the current Highmark Stadium, it certainly is a heck of a home schedule.
Yeah, the timing really working out well. The road slate's not really all that sexy, but the home one certainly has a lot of great opponents. And you mentioned it, Vic, off the top. Let's show the primetime slate here. 5 of them here. And once again, look at that. 4 in the first 6 weeks. Vic, which one maybe pops the most for you?
Yeah, well, hard not to, as Jonathan just talked about, hard not to look at that Ravens game. The 2 MVP players going head-to-head, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and we know how that playoff game against the Ravens ended. What might have been if Mark Andrews hangs on to that 2-point conversion at the end of the game. So the drama, I mean, give the league so much credit to know how to script seasons, at least as they start, right? That one, of course, is going to jump out at me. The fact that they put New England in a primetime setting on the other Sunday night game that's at Highmark Stadium, I found kind of curious, but maybe there's some Drake May magic that and the fact that Mike Vrabel is the new coach there, a lot of high expectation. Maybe that's what the NFL and the network was thinking about.
It certainly doesn't hurt that there's the added element of Stephon Diggs returning to Buffalo, this time as a member of the Patriots. To me, the one that sticks out is the Week 6 game at the Falcons. It's always interesting to me when you play one of those teams from the crossover divisions in the other conference. You only visit that city generally every 8 years. So the Bills going back to Atlanta, we saw the Chiefs there in primetime last year. That facility, one of the nicer stadiums in the NFL. So I think as the Falcons are sort of on an upward trajectory with Michael Penix Jr., I think the NFL also looks to get them in a little bit more of a national window. And what better opportunity to do that than having Josh Allen enter Mercedes-Benz Stadium to take on the Falcons?
As I told Jonathan before the show, the last time the Bills playing in Atlanta, LaShawn McCoy, I'm in there with my camera in the locker room. Come talk to the winners. Come talk to the winners when they had that big-time upset. Jordan Matthews, a rare splash for the Bills in that game. Let's quickly go through the divisional games here. 6 of them, obviously. We've already touched on a few of them because they're in that early primetime slate. Jonathan, we'll start with you. The order of them, I guess, is maybe what really we could take away from this.
Well, especially you look at this, and for example, last year, they didn't play the Patriots at all until December, and they had 2 of those final 3 games of the season against the Patriots. This year, the divisional schedule a little bit, I guess, better balanced, but again, 3 division games in the first 5 weeks of the season. So really, if you think about it from the Bills' perspective, you think to yourself, we have an opportunity to take a real stranglehold of this division before we even get to October or to late October. And that's sort of what happened for the Bills last year, where they took care of business within the division and they had the AFC East wrapped up weeks before the season ended.
All right, Vic, what are your thoughts on the division?
Well, yeah, in terms of the division, the fact that, three of these games show up in this first part of the season prior to the Week 7 bye, which is an early bye for this team. And honestly, this schedule, except for the Ravens opener, sets up pretty favorably to put the Bills in a position of possibly being unbeaten by the bye. Am I getting crazy saying that right now? I don't think so.
I don't think so either, Vic. All right, it's time to get into this thing game by game. After the break, Vic, Jonathan, and I diving into the matchups. You're watching a special Bills schedule release show right here on WGRZ+. Welcome back to our special Bills schedule release show here on WGRZ+. No time to waste because we're about to give our thoughts on each game week by week. We start with week 1 here. Home game, as we said, Sunday Night Football against the Ravens. Vic, I mean, it's arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and exciting quarterbacks too, right? I mean, they're not just great at what they do, but it's also how they do it. And again, back to what the NFL, what the networks look for is high levels of entertainment. And I think you're going to get that with the Ravens and the Bills. And I think the Ravens come into this feeling like they've got to make their mark early. Lamar Jackson, they've got something to atone for in terms of another short playoff appearance, and the Bills eliminating them last year. So I think it sets up a nice script for that game.
I want to go off what Vic said because I do think the Ravens have a bad taste in their mouth from the way they lost that Bills game. We think back to the Mark Andrews fumble that Terrell Bernard caused, and then the drop, obviously, that he had in the end zone on the 2-point conversion. So they're going to come into this game motivated. Obviously, every big primetime game, big AFC opponent, they're going to come in motivated. But we remember the buildup to that game last year in the playoffs. That was only a week of buildup between the Ravens and the Bills. Now we get, 3-4 months looking ahead to this game on Sunday Night Football. So obviously that's going to be one of the most anticipated games of the season between the Bills and Ravens.
You know we're going to blow it out here on Channel 2. Move to week 2 here at the New York Jets, an early game in the Meadowlands here. New head coach, new quarterback. Jonathan, we'll start with you. This should be an easy game, right?
It should be an easy game, and part of this early season, sort of after you get done with the Ravens, you really get a chance to probably stack some wins here if you're the Bills and be in a really good position as you go into the bye and even coming out of the bye. They have Justin Fields. They don't have Aaron Rodgers, so it's going to be a new-look Jets team, obviously with the new head coach and Aaron Glenn, looking to bring a little bit more discipline and physicality to this Jets team. It's a defense that has given the Bills issues in the past. Can the Jets offense finally show that they can potentially cause some issues for the Bills defense this time around?
Vic, week 3, second primetime game to start the season for them the Miami Dolphins coming to Orchard Park for Thursday Night Football. And this is my birthday. Back-to-back division games here this early. What do you think of Miami trying to find their way with maybe or maybe not a healthy Tua?
Yeah, I just can't. I find it very hard to look at any game against Miami that the Bills play and feel like, okay, this could be a problem. Yes, I mean, the Bills have found a way to lose to these guys before, but that's what it has to be, finding a way. And at home, I'm just not seeing it early in the season. I think the Bills, as long as they're finding their groove, keep in mind, guys, early in the season, you generally have an extension of the preseason, right? Everybody's kind of syncing up, and you don't, with limitations of what you can do in training camp, the limited appearance in the preseason of starters. So there will still be some kinks being worked out. But I'm not expecting this to be a problematic game in a raucous Highmark Stadium on Thursday Night Football.
Vic, I'm going to stick with you because I don't know if there's a whole heck of a lot to say about the New Orleans Saints in Week 4. Derek Carr literally just retired a few days ago here. New head coach, an uncertainty at quarterback, probably a rookie. This is a game that absolutely you take, especially the division element out of it, like with those previous 2 games we discussed. I mean, if I'm going to pencil anything in pen for a W for the Bills, this probably is it, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there is so much that is unknown about this Saints team. This is going to be, I think, a year where they're just going to, allow their head coach and allow their coaching staff and the players, whoever ends up winning that quarterback job. It's a wide open situation, and if you've got a rookie coming in, that of course is going to be trouble for that rookie traveling or facing, I should say. I think, and again, in this stadium, and the Bills, a more established team that's going to look at the Saints and say, no, you're not going to trip us up.
Boy, does Sean McDermott cause havoc for young rookie quarterbacks when they're, especially in Orchard Park. Week 5, Patriots, Sunday Night Football. Jonathan, the stage is set here. Third division game this early in the season. The Bills could really get a stranglehold at the top of the AFC East, depending upon how this thing swings.
It's a fascinating game for several reasons. First, last year there was the early season game in Houston, the game against Stephon Diggs. This time they get to play him again early in the season. We thought maybe that Texans game going into the schedule release would be a primetime game last year. This time they get to play Diggs in primetime when the Patriots come here. Obviously, it's their first time playing the Patriots with Vrabel as their new head coach. Could we be looking at maybe the biggest contender to the Bills in the AFC East in this game? Obviously, the Jets have a new quarterback in Justin Fields. The Dolphins, if Tua is healthy, they're a threat, but obviously, unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for the Dolphins at several points in these past couple years. So the Patriots, they have Drake May. We saw him as a bright spot for that team last year when they came to Buffalo. They had plenty of money to throw around in free agency. So just how competitive are the Patriots this season? This will be our first good look at them.
The league clearly betting on Drake May. I think, Vic, you alluded to that earlier. And they also are clearly betting on Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons here because back-to-back primetime games for the Bills, this one on the road in Atlanta, Monday Night Football. Interesting team, I think, Vic. Atlanta is a wild card. Some people thought the Bears maybe a year ago with a young quarterback would be a team that could really push them. They ultimately did not. Maybe the Falcons in the same boat. We'll find out, I think, early in the season in this one if they are up to snuff as a potential contender.
Yeah, their second NFC South game in 3 weeks. Again, when you count that Saints team that they face in Monday night in Atlanta, probably not the easiest chore. I think the Falcons will, and with Michael Penix and the confidence that they have in him, instead of going with a more experienced Kirk Cousins, who by then could be on a different roster and should be, I guess. But yeah, this will be interesting to see. And playing it also, keep in mind, this is a Monday night doubleheader. This will be the earlier of the two games. Not that affects necessarily what the Bills are going to do on the field, but it's just a note to have that it's one of two Monday night games.
And then we enter the bye week, and Jonathan, you made a really good observation we discussed earlier tonight about the timing of the bye week for the Bills, albeit early.
Certainly the Bills have 2 suspensions along the defensive line in Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt. They're suspended for 6 games. Well, this bye week comes in week 7. So what does that allow? Well, you play those first 6 games, and instead of having a game set up for week 7 and where you're trying to get these guys back and really fully integrate them now, they get this week 7 bye week to sort of slowly work their way back in, and you feel better about their chances to really contribute to the defense come week 8 when the team returns to action.
And they return at Carolina, a 1 o'clock game, Vic. This is a team that it all depends on the quarterback like so often here. What is Bryce Young here entering year 3?
Yeah, and there's a lot of, with Dave Canales, of course, entering his second season as head coach of the Panthers. Canales is showing a lot of faith in Bryce Young. Again, I don't know how much choice you have. You make a guy a top overall pick, you're going to stick with him a bit, even though he had a very rough rookie season. But there was a lot of opinion around the league that he was kind of coming into his own toward the end of last year. We'll see how things go, but there has been some optimism in this offseason about that. The interesting thing, too, to note is the bye week that precedes this. It's an early bye week. Makes me just wonder, we should note, about the tough stretch as far as the rest of the schedule goes as a whole. that you don't get a break, right? You've got a lot of games that you're going to be playing, so health and everything else is going to be possibly compromised because you don't really have any rest period once this Carolina game kicks it off.
You said tough, Vic. How about the Kansas City Chiefs in Orchard Park, Week 9, 425? Jonathan, we discuss it every single year. I don't know how much there more is to dive into about the matchup itself, maybe about the timing here, middle or early, I should say, November.
Exactly. We've dissected this matchup so many times in recent years, but something interesting to notice that for a third straight year, it seems like this Chiefs game really kicks off what is maybe the most difficult, the most important stretch of the season for the Bills. 2 seasons ago, it was coming off the bye week. The Bills essentially needed to win out to make the playoffs. They did just that. Last year, it sort of kicked off another tough stretch where they also played the Rams, the Lions, and the 49ers. I think this year, this Chiefs game marks the start of the toughest stretch of the season for the Bills, where you have Kansas City, and then in the next 4 to 5 weeks, you have other teams that either are going to be playoff contenders or you figure will be teams that will be fighting for playoff spots.
Vic, your thoughts on another matchup with KC, this one in Western New York?
Yes, 6th season in a row that they're playing these guys in the regular season. Of course, the 2nd year in a row they're doing that in Orchard Park. That's kind of interesting. And of course, you know, they do well against the Chiefs in the regular season. But how much stock do we put in that, guys? Because it's 4 losses in a row in the postseason. So we're going to, you know, possibly see yet another Bills regular season win. And then we're going to wonder, what will this mean come January?
Yeah, it kind of stinks, this game. And it's such a great 2 of the best teams in football for so long. You really just can't take much from the regular season anymore. We're going to touch on Miami, and I'm going to take the lead on this one because we already did this one at Miami. So if you like to travel, early November, I think, is a darn good time to get to Southern Florida there. Let's move on to Week 11, and we'll go to Jonathan here. The Buccaneers, I didn't even do that on purpose. You're a Tampa guy,
yeah.
So you could take this one. Week 11, we got Baker Mayfield and company coming to Orchard Park.
And interesting enough, they're an NFC team, but they're coming to Orchard Park for the 2nd time in 3 seasons. They were here for a primetime game 2 seasons ago and gave the Bills a run for their money, a tight scoring game. It was one of the final few games of the Ken Dorsey era as offensive coordinator. This time, Tampa coming with an even more explosive offense than they came 2 seasons ago. Chris Godwin, hopefully healthy at wide receiver. They drafted your fellow Buckeye, Emeka Egbuka, in the 1st round. So it figures to be yet another explosive offense for Tampa. So I think this could be a game where we're getting some offensive fireworks between Mayfield and Allen going against each other.
Short week, Vic, following the Bucs game. Houston Texans, Thursday Night Football. We saw how that game went a year ago. The Houston team, though, it looks different, especially the roster.
Yeah, you know, C.J. Stroud, obviously his sophomore year last season wasn't what his historic rookie year was, but I think there were some extenuating circumstances, not the least of which were injuries to his receiving core, including his former receiver, Stephon Diggs, now with the Patriots. But in terms of the O-line, and that's something that the Texans have looked to improve. Again, this game's in Houston as it was last year, but I think last year's loss had as much to do with questionable coaching decision. We know that was kind of a lingering situation from that game, how time management and so forth was handled. So we'll see if they get it, do it better, I guess, this time around.
10 days between this one and the Bills' next game, so a bit of a mini bye, which helps because the Bills have an earlier bye. Then they're at Pittsburgh for this next game. What in the world is happening at quarterback? Who in the world knows when Aaron Rodgers will let us know? But Jonathan, Steelers are just always tough, even though you may look at the roster and say, I don't know how Mike Tomlin's getting this team above 500 once again. And
this is one of those games where you look at it and you're like, oh, it could be a primetime game between 2 of the big brands in the NFL right now. But that's actually why I think it makes perfect sense in that 425 slot. The NFL, the networks love to have some of those big games, save them for November, December in that 425 slot. You have a short trip for Bills Mafia down to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, so I expect a good showing from them over there. It seems like they play them every year in the preseason, so it'll be interesting to finally get a true regular season game that actually matters between these 2 teams.
Same division. This time we're coming home. Bengals. This is a team that whenever the Bills have faced them recently has given them fits, especially Joe Burrow and that offense. Vic, I think at this point in the season, early December, this is a really, really critical and big measuring stick for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, I think it's a huge measuring stick. I don't expect the Bengals to be the team that stumbled out of the gate so badly last year that they weren't able to recover. I think they are going to make a atonement for that. Joe Burrow still as good as it gets at quarterback, and then they spend what they needed to spend to make sure they kept the two, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the two best receivers, or two of the best in the league, easily the best duo. And I think that in and of itself makes it a very, very tough game. And then we'll see what else this Bengal team can bring in the way of defense, new defensive coordinator there. Again, a lot that you look at with this team. And like you said, as a late season, early December matchup goes, this could be very telling about the whole postseason picture.
Boy, is that Trey Hendrickson situation a complete mess, even though they got the wide receivers locked in. Jonathan, your thoughts on the Bengals here in Week 14?
Obviously, two of the top quarterbacks in the NFL going against each other in Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. And when we talked about the Kansas City game, we talked about that being sort of the start of this tough stretch for the Bills in this season. This Bengals game sort of marking the back end of that tough stretch. So between Kansas City and Cincinnati, I think we'll have a very good idea of just exactly who this Bills team is as they enter the home stretch and then going into the postseason.
Now the Bills with back-to-back road games beginning at the New England Patriots. It's a 1 o'clock game. I'm going to promise you folks, by the time we get to Week 15, a Sunday 1 o'clock game, even on the road, is going to be an early Christmas present, I think, for us all. Second time facing the New England Patriots, but as I tend to agree with you, Jonathan. I think this team is going to be the biggest threat to the Bills in the division. Vic, what do you think?
I would have to say so, because I just can't see it from the Jets with Justin Fields. You don't have the belief there, and as I said earlier, the Dolphins don't do it for me, but the Patriots just might. And here's the thing, guys, is the Mike Vrabel handle on this team, the Mike Vrabel program, if you will, does it start taking hold like in the second half of the season for that team? And Drake May gaining experience, and there's a lot to like with him, but he was a raw rookie last year. I would think a less raw rookie, and by this time, mid-December and toward the end, Week 15, we could be looking at a team that's ready to at least make things interesting in dealing with the Bills.
And in recent seasons, the Bills have been able to go to New York and pick up wins, go to Miami and pick up wins. But they've lost this game in New England each of the past two seasons. Last year was the backups the Bills didn't need to play. But the year before, they lost to Mac Jones in Foxborough. So this, regardless of who is on this Patriots roster, has not been an easy game. This looks like it could be the Patriots' best roster in combination with coaching staff that they've had in the past 3 or 4 seasons. So I expect this to be a very competitive game. And could it be potentially the one where the Bills officially wrap up the AFC East?
Week 16 in my hometown, Cleveland. Just go to the Winking Lizard because we just don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. The Browns are a mess. I think that this one, Vic, it'll be a nice little hey, I'm back on home turf here. But I think from a football sense, we can just say we all kind of know who the Browns are, and the Bills should not have a problem going on the road 3 hours on the shores of Lake Erie. So let's move to the next game because this is a doozy. And Jonathan, we'll start with you. The Super Bowl champion, Nick Sirianni, homecoming here, bringing the Eagles to Orchard Park for a 4:25 game at the end of December.
The setup sort of feels like, in college football where in November a team will have an FCS opponent the week before, arguably their biggest game of the season in late November. That's what this feels like. The Super Bowl champions coming into town. Obviously, Nick Sirianni from Western New York. That'll be a cool homecoming for him. As we see on the graphic, though, the Eagles have lost some players from that Super Bowl winning defense. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams is in New England now. Mekhi Becton gone on the offensive line. This is still a really good team and one of the teams that you would be expecting to compete for the Super Bowl title this year. So in terms of matchups that I'm looking forward to this season, this is right up there with that Ravens and Chiefs game this season.
Vic, a heck of a game 2 weeks before the regular season ends for the Bills.
Yeah, really. And again, these Super Bowl champs won that Super Bowl largely because they have such dominance on both lines. And as Jonathan points out, some of those members cashed in on their play in the Super Bowl, especially, and on their big seasons to go elsewhere. But the Eagles are still formidable up front. And I think that's where the matchup intrigues me, how the Bills will handle this. But a quick note here, this will be the second sort of full where you've got full back-to-back games preceding it on the road, right? They were at New England and at Cleveland prior to this one, and then that earlier stretch was at Houston and at Pittsburgh. And I know there's one before, but it's got the bye in between. So kind of interesting that there's 3 segments of the schedule with back-to-back road games, and you wonder, again, without the bye here coming into this game, is there any fatigue factor? It'll be similar to the Eagles, too, but I just think this is going to be interesting to see how the Bills can hold up, and can they do any better than the Chiefs did, for instance, in the Super Bowl?
Vic, I want to get your thoughts on the Jets being the final regular season opponent ever inside Highmark Stadium Week 18.
Yeah, and again, kind of a fitting way to do that, play a divisional game. It's the Jets. We'll see what they're all about. But Aaron Glenn, I'd say, is the X factor, what he could mean to a team that badly needed some kind of direction and discipline and all of that. Can he bring it together in his first year as a first-time head coach? But a lot of respect for him. But we'll see what it means by the end. I don't think the Jets roster is going to match up all that well, but it will be obviously a very fascinating way to see to say goodbye to an old friend. That stadium where I spent a whole lot of time in that press box over many years.
And we're going to get to that on the other side of the break. The final regular season inside this Highmark Stadium. We're going to wrap things up with our thoughts on this last ride at home in the Bills' current home before moving across the street. You're watching a special Bills schedule release show right here on WGRZ+. Final segment here, and it's focusing on the final season at the current Highmark Stadium. The three of us, I think it's really cool. We have different timelines, different perspectives with the stadium. Vic, you alluded to it in the last block here. You witnessed firsthand some of the greatest moments in that building, so it's only appropriate to start with you and your thoughts as this farewell tour at Highmark Stadium begins.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts come to mind. I mean, many, but a couple that I want to just reference here. And it would obviously be the comeback game. Both of these memories involve Frank Reich. The comeback game against Houston, when I'm in that press box at halftime trying to make travel arrangements to cover not the Bills, but whoever else it would have been in the next round. Well, obviously it was the Bills, and we know the history of what Frank Reich was able to do with that miraculous comeback against the Oilers. The other memory with Frank Reich happened earlier. It was a Monday night game against the Rams, and he also brought them back to a victory, not quite as dramatically as that, but pretty drama impacted or drama filled. And I just remember Frank, it was so unexpected. Frank didn't really even know what to do when the winning play had happened. He was kind of like dancing around and just kind of looked like a lost puppy because he wasn't sure, oh my God, I just, helped this team win a game. And that stood out to me. And that was the same night that the press box, the glass in the older press box we were in, cracked suddenly. We didn't know what the heck had happened, if a bullet or something had hit it. I remember my late colleague Larry Felser of the Buffalo News, because it happened right in front of him. He thought maybe it was an angry fan or something. And chunks of glass started to fall onto us, in front of us. And I remember keeping a chunk of that as a paperweight many years later.
Wow, that's cool. Jonathan, you have a different perspective. You're on the field for the games, getting the video highlights for us fantastically, might I add there.
Thank you.
Something I haven't done, Vic. I know you haven't done it either, so you have a different perspective, even though you haven't been here as long as we have.
Yeah, no, before here, I had been covering college football in some of the biggest stadiums in the country, in the Swamp in Gainesville, Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. And one of the first things that stood out to me being on the field in Orchard Park is it resembles a lot of that high-energy atmosphere from college football games, the memories that come to mind for me in the short time that I've been here. Josh Allen's touchdown run against the Steelers last year, his run against the 49ers in the snow game this year, obviously his late fourth quarter touchdown against the Chiefs. It's the people who make the stadium. And Bills Mafia certainly have had a way in their time here at Highmark Stadium of making that place one of the best home field advantages in the NFL.
Taron Johnson, pick six, albeit in the COVID, not many fans in there, but it really shows the acoustics and the loudness of Bills Mafia in that building. That, what was it, 10,000, I think, 8,000 people were in the stands for that. And it will go down as one of the greatest moments in franchise history to see something like that and hear it through the glass that was not shattered at that point, Vic, in the Bills press box, and be like, oh my gosh, this is what it was. And so many moments to see with the Josh Allen, because I've seen it come from the back end of the drought to where it is now, and it's pretty remarkable. And it's been super cool, guys. I know all of us has been to Orchard Park. We saw it as the pit. Now we've seen it as a bit of a skeleton, and with 1 year to go, it'll be super cool to see it from the outside and get inside to see what the new Highmark Stadium looks like. But before we do all that, let's look at the schedule real quick on the way out the door for the games that are going to be in the current Highmark Stadium for its farewell tour here. A lot of prime time, 5 of them. 2 of them you see right here on Channel 2. And they end with the Jets in Orchard Park, but hopefully a playoff game after that. And that'll do it for our Bills schedule release special here on WGRZ+. Vic Carucci, Jonathan Acosta, and John Scott. Enjoy booking that travel.